but because yes, but because there is so much of pressure, right? And there are so many things which actually are required to be done, and there is not sufficient time where you can actually allow people that much space. So at times we end up indulging in what is military talk. So how can this military talk be avoided in classroom settings? So I actually have brought this idea to you all. At times we complain that the students are not good, and we end up indulging in military talk because we feel that students are not responding, they're not good, they're not smart enough. So as teachers, I come from an area where actually students come from underprivileged and very backward places also, and they do not have access to quality education in their schools. So sometimes the situation is such that they are not in a position to write two proper sentences in English also, and we have to teach them literature. So our job starts with language. So our job is not to give them the language, but still the state is this. But I tell this to my students, right? That do not think that we deserve smart, self-motivated, hardworking students who do not really need to be taught. The moment you will actually believe that yes, these are the students who absolutely need us. I often feel that the students who are self-motivated, who are smart, who are hardworking, they any which ways they'll actually improve, they'll grow, and they'll make their significant contribution to society. But those students who are not smart enough, those students who are not self-motivated, those students who are not enlightened enough, or hardworking enough, if we can change them by conscious effort, then our contribution to the world, it would be significant. For example, if a student is there and he can just on the basis of his current approach, if he can just make a living of some he can actually earn after the studies hardly 10,000 or 15,000, and if my conscious effort, it changes him slightly also, and he rises to 20-25,000 level also, means expertise is such that he can get this much money or make this much contribution, then my contribution to the society would be significant, because I'm not changing just one person, but I'm changing a household, a society, and that way a community. So whenever you find that your students are wanting in something, it requires conscious effort, extra effort, then please do not hesitate, because if we can change them, then our contribution to the nation would be significant, very, very important. There are many students who come to me and they tell me, ma'am, whatever
Madam,
we could do. Yes,
can I ask a question?
yes, yes, why not?
Why all the PhD guide behaves like Hitler to their
Hmm.
scholars?
They do. That's what I'm saying. That we have to be slow in this. At times, it discourages actual research. Also, if the attitude of guide is that rigid, then what happens is that the scholar, under the pressure of delivery, ends up in excessive. So as research guides, I had two scholars who have already completed their thesis under me. What I feel is that research guides role becomes even more important. You have to actually nurture them, for research, because the school setup and system had been such that many times you might not expect them to be having that research aptitude, realized already. It is there, but the change will come when you realize that you have that research aptitude. So for that, every teacher, not only scholar, has to understand that if you can change someone who is not self motivated, smart enough, hardworking enough, and you can change that person, transform that person into something useful to society, your contribution would be unique. And you know that that student needs us the most. Those who are self motivated would be like a Klavya, they can read anywhere, right? But those students who are not self
Madam, sometimes
motivated,
the scholars get faded and attempt for suicide also, because they when they spend all of most time near about 6 to 7 years not getting their degree, but the rude voice sometimes what can I say? I have no word for that.
no, I have this experience also, around. Yes, the pressure actually takes toll on people, and if they're clueless, if the research supervisor says you are good for nothing, poor scholar would believe it to be true, and then the impact would be disastrous. So if you tell the students they're good for nothing, they believe it, sirs. and therefore you have to be really, conscious enough. We have to be enthusiastic, we have to be self motivated, we have to be sincere, and we have to be objective, and we have to be willing to work, and then we can change the situation, right? And the teaching fraternity should have a desire to change for better, because
Thank
if
you.
anyone can change the society, then we do you believe in it or not? So can
Yes,
teachers
yes,
bring
madam.
the change? Yes.
Yes, yes, madam. I believe it may be changes in some days.
Yes. So I thought that I should be talking to you all about this, because somehow this COVID period had been really full of stress for us also.
Madam, one second, I interpret. Yes,
Yes.
the NEP, the National Education Policy, can motivate the teachers to bendings toward the teachers, towards the students, instead of rude voiced in to love and attract the peoples for more glory of our Indian education.
A very good question, sir. First and foremost, my take on new education policy is that it is first solid attempt at decolonizing the Indian mind. So, spirit of the new education policy is very good, but there are some loopholes, and we, the teachers, actually can, change everything to suit us, right? And our role becomes really important if we will take pains to read the new. I was a part of the committee of my university, which actually deliberated upon the draft of the new education policy, and we actually gave our recommendations to the Minister of Education also. So we happened to not only read the draft but also deliberate upon it. So what I felt was that it is we have been complaining about the colonized minds which we are having. So we appreciate everything English, but somehow we are slow in appreciating things Indian. This has become, a nature of all of us. But if any unique contribution, one question about research, lacking in research is this also, because majority of the times, those who have, the ability, they feel crippled because of language also, because there is no research facility available in our own languages, right? So if we can allow the space where people can think in their own language and talk about it in their own language, maybe our research index also would increase. So that is important for research also, that we actually understand the true intent of new education policy, and we take pains to actually, like, it's a family actually, education, family, academic fraternity, we all of us. So there are loopholes in the policy, and we have to make sure that the spirit of the policy never gets frustrated. And if we will do that, I can actually assert it, I can actually promise is that we can change things for better. But only when we are not lethargic, when we're willing to put in efforts, right? So for that, each stakeholder, each teacher, each academician, man, those in administrative positions, they have to read the policy draft, and they have to actually understand the intent, the spirit, and then, yeah, they have to come up with a plan how they are going to use it in their practice, day-to-day practice, right? So if we are actually willing to do this, then I think, nothing can stop us from being number one, because human resource is something which can make all the difference if we actually can direct it properly, right? Then nothing can stop us, right? Okay. So in classrooms, I actually thought that classroom principle of classroom management, right? What can be one word for classroom management? I always tell my fellow teachers in training programs that when the moment you enter into the classroom, go into rest mode. Yes, rest mode. Classroom management principle, I said that, remember, it is rest. Now, what kind of rest? Where rest would stand for recognize the issues, problems, needs of the students, eliminate the problems, hindrances in the learning process, then spend the time in understanding the students, so that you can actually evaluate their growth, you can see where they are, and from there where you have to take them where, so you can define for yourself the path. If you spend some time with your students and you understand their needs well, right, then time, give them some time. So the moment you go into the classroom, do not be in a hurry. So because it's not your job just to render the information and forget about it. Your job is to make sure that they understand, the information is taken, the information is received. So the moment you go in your classroom, forget about all that is there outside the classroom and follow this principle of rest. Be at your age, give proper time, make you believe that there is sufficient time to address the gaps in learning, and to make them, to prepare them capable of learning, to give them time which they'll require to learn. So believe it to be true. If you'll believe it to be true and you'll work towards it, then you'll find out ways also of doing it, right? Okay, so do you believe it to be true? Can anyone actually suggest any other things we should keep in mind for meaningful learning to take place in classrooms? The new education policy emphasizes this. One thing which is very beautiful, I should not say beautiful because it is not the right word, but which is very good about the new education policy is that it lays emphasis on learning as a lifelong process, right? So learning is a lifelong process. It doesn't stop with the school or college learning, university learning, and it's a process of learning and self discovery. So basically you are actually helping the students take their path to learning and self discovery. And once they learn this art, they cultivate the art, they become capable of self discovery, then nothing will stop them from actually learning and